The grand observation deck of the Galactic Convergence Station hummed with an electrical tension that transcended biological boundaries. Diplomats from 100 star systems gathered, their anticipation palpable and complex. Holographic displays flickered with incoming data, tracking the approach of a vessel that had become the single most discussed topic across multiple communication networks. Admiral Lyra of the Celestial Harmonies studied the incoming sensor readings with a mixture of professional curiosity and genuine bewilderment. Her species had spent millennia perfecting the art of first contact, elaborate protocols, carefully choreographed diplomatic rituals, and grand displays of technological prowess. Yet here was humanity, responding to the most significant invitation in galactic history with a single, seemingly unremarkable ship. The station itself was a marvel of collective engineering. Constructed at the gravitational intersection of 3 major star systems, it represented the pinnacle of cooperative design. Massive crystalline structures branched like frozen lightning, housing diplomatic chambers that could simultaneously accommodate beings of wildly different physiological requirements. Atmosphere generators, gravity modulators, and translation matrices worked in perfect harmony, creating a neutral ground where the most diverse representatives of galactic civilization could meet. Surrounding Lyra, a panorama of alien diplomacy unfolded. The methane-breathing representatives from the Crux Nebula clusters stood in specially designed environmental bubbles, their translucent forms shifting with barely contained excitement. Nearby, the silicon-based delegates from the Obsidian Confederacy communicated through intricate light patterns, their crystalline bodies refracting information in complex geometric displays. "One ship," muttered Counselor Zreen of the Quantum Collective, his multiple sensory tendrils writhing with confusion. Just one. The incoming vessel defied every expectation. Sensor readings suggested technology that was simultaneously primitive and incomprehensibly advanced. Its profile was small, barely 500 meters in length, a size that would be considered little more than a shuttle by most galactic standards. Yet there was something about its approach that suggested depths of capability far beyond its modest appearance. Communication protocols began their intricate dance. Translation matrices spun to life, quantum algorithms preparing to decode whatever transmission might come. The diplomatic court held a collective breath, representatives from hundreds of civilizations united in a moment of shared anticipation. Junior analyst Kyra from the Stellar Research Collaborative leaned forward, her 3-lens optical system zooming in on the incoming data streams. Something about the ship's approach was unusual. Most vessels followed predictable navigation corridors, their movements calculated and precise. This human ship moved differently, almost as if it was alive, adapting to the space around it with an organic fluidity that challenged traditional understanding of spacecraft dynamics. "It's not following standard approach vectors," she whispered, her voice carrying a mix of professional excitement and scientific wonder. The station's chief of communications, a veteran diplomat from the Spiral Concordance, adjusted several sensory interfaces. His multiple appendages moved with practiced efficiency, each motion a testament to decades of interstellar communication experience. "Incoming transmission," he announced, his universal translator humming to life. The assembled diplomats leaned forward. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Humanity's first official response to the invitation that had been transmitted across hundreds of light years. Decades of preparation, centuries of technological advancement, and millennia of diplomatic evolution had led to this moment. The galactic convergence was more than just a meeting. It was a potential turning point in the collective history of sentient species. The ship continued its approach, its hull reflecting the distant starlight in patterns that seemed to shift and change with each passing moment. Was it a trick of the light, a complex surface technology, or something more? No one could look away. The vessel moved with a grace that seemed to challenge the very laws of physics. It wasn't just traveling through space, it was negotiating with space itself, finding paths that other ships would never consider. Admiral Lyra felt something she had not experienced in her long diplomatic career: genuine uncertainty. What was behind this single ship? What message was humanity truly sending? The observation deck held its collective breath, waiting. The transmission crackled to life, filling the observation deck with a symphony of technological anticipation. Communication arrays from 100 different civilizations converged, their complex quantum algorithms spinning into overdrive to decode the incoming message. Captain Elena Rodriguez appeared on the primary holographic display. Her image was both familiar and alien, a human form that seemed to embody something more than mere biological existence. The translation matrices worked furiously, struggling to capture the nuanced complexity of her communication. "Greetings," she began. "We come with curiosity, capability, and an invitation to reimagine possibility." The words hung in the air, multilayered and profound. Each species heard something slightly different, filtered through their unique linguistic and cultural understanding. For the methane-breathing Crux delegates, it translated to a complex harmonic pattern of molecular vibrations. The silicon-based Obsidian Confederacy received it as a geometric equation of potential and promise. Chief Diplomat Serene of the Quantum Collective leaned forward, his sensory tendrils vibrating with intense concentration. The transmission contained layers of information that went far beyond simple verbal communication. Embedded within the audio stream were mathematical proofs, cultural references, and what appeared to be adaptive communication protocols. "Analyze subsection gamma," he instructed his team of researchers. "There's something unusual about the data encoding." The human transmission was unlike anything in galactic diplomatic history. Where most first contact messages were carefully structured, diplomatically neutral communications, this felt more like an intricate conversation starter. Part scientific proposal, part cultural exchange, part cosmic joke. Junior analyst Kyra from the Stellar Research Collaborative isolated specific data streams. The mathematical components were particularly fascinating. Embedded within the transmission were complex algorithmic sequences that seemed to be simultaneously a greeting, a cultural introduction, and a sophisticated problem-solving demonstration. "It's as if they're showing us how they think," she muttered, her three-lens optical system capturing every microscopic detail. "Not just telling us, but demonstrating." The ship itself continued its approach, moving with a fluidity that defied conventional understanding of spaceship navigation. Traditional vessels followed predictable corridors, their movements calculated and precise. This human ship seemed to dance between potential paths, its trajectory a living algorithm that adapted in real time. Diplomatic communication specialists worked frantically to decode the deeper meanings. The transmission wasn't just a message, it was a multidimensional introduction to human thought processes. Mathematical complexity suggests advanced problem-solving capabilities, noted Dr. Crean, the station's chief scientific advisor. But there's something more. The way the information is structured, it's almost playful. Indeed, tucked between complex quantum equations and cultural references were what could only be described as intellectual jokes. References to Earth concepts like jazz improvisation and unexpected solutions were woven into the transmission's fabric, challenging every conventional understanding of diplomatic communication. The Crux delegates began a complex vibrational discussion, their methane environment bubbling with excitement. The Obsidian Confederacy representatives shifted their crystalline structures, light patterns indicating deep analytical processes. "They're not following any known communication protocol," whispered one diplomatic aide. "Exactly," responded another. "And that might be precisely the point." As the transmission continued, it became clear that humanity was doing more than introducing itself. It was challenging every existing concept of first contact, of communication, of potential interaction between species. The ship continued its approach, each moment revealing new layers of complexity. Sensor readings suggested technologies that seemed to blur the line between engineering and something more, something that felt almost like a living system. Captain Rodriguez's image remained steady, her expression a mixture of professional composure and something else, a hint of excitement, of genuine curiosity about the encounter. "We're here," The transmission continued, to explore, to learn, to understand. Not just your technologies, but your perspectives, your potential. The observation deck remained silent, every being present understanding that something extraordinary was unfolding. This was more than a first contact. This was a fundamental reimagining of what first contact could mean. The docking sequence began with a series of events that would be discussed in scientific conferences for generations. What initially appeared to be a standard approach quickly transformed into something extraordinary, a living demonstration of technological capability that defied every established understanding of spacecraft mechanics. Dr. Kareen, the quantum dynamics expert from the Stellar Consortium, could barely contain her professional excitement. Her multiple neural interfaces simultaneously tracked, analyzed, and struggled to comprehend the ship's molecular transformations. "It's not just changing," she whispered to her research assistant. "It's communicating through its structural modifications." The ship's hull began to shift in ways that challenged fundamental physics. Molecular structures seemed to flow like liquid, yet maintained structural integrity. Energy fields rippled across its surface in complex patterns that resembled advanced mathematical equations made visible. Sensor arrays from a dozen different civilizations captured the event. Each detected something slightly different, a testament to the complexity of the ongoing transformation. The methane-breathing Crux delegates observed molecular resonance patterns. The silicon-based Obsidian Confederacy tracked quantum state fluctuations. Each perspective revealed another layer of the ship's incredible capabilities. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the central control interface, her posture relaxed despite the extraordinary events unfolding around her. When she spoke, her voice carried a matter-of-fact tone that made the impossible seem routine. "Standard exploration module reconfiguration," she explained, as if describing something as mundane as changing a light bulb. The docking mechanism itself became a canvas of technological marvel. Where most ships required precise, rigid connection protocols, this human vessel seemed to negotiate with the station's infrastructure. Energy fields extended, probed, adapted. It was less a docking and more a complex conversation between two technological systems. Junior analyst Kyra watched in absolute fascination. Her three-lens optical system captured microscopic details that would become the subject of doctoral dissertations across multiple star systems. The ship wasn't just approaching. It was learning, adapting, communicating. "Molecular restructuring complete," announced the station's chief engineer, his voice a mixture of professional calm and barely contained wonder. What had initially appeared to be a simple vessel revealed layers of complexity that rewrote understanding of spacecraft design. The hull could alter its quantum state, phase through standard energy barriers, and reconfigure its molecular structure with a fluidity that seemed almost biological. Dr. Kreen, the station's chief scientific advisor, ran multiple simultaneous analysis protocols. "This isn't just advanced technology," he muttered. "This is a living system of adaptive engineering." The demonstration continued. Parts of the ship that seemed solid moments ago now flowed like liquid metal, reorganizing themselves to optimize connection with the station's infrastructure. Energy transfer systems adapted in real time, finding the most efficient pathways with an intelligence that suggested something beyond traditional computational logic. "It's problem-solving," observed one diplomatic aide. "Not just executing a program, but actually thinking." Communication specialists worked frantically to understand the deeper implications. This wasn't just a technological display, it was a message. Humanity was showing, not telling, its approach to innovation and adaptation. Captain Rodriguez moved with a casual grace that somehow amplified the extraordinary nature of the moment. When asked about the ship's capabilities, she offered explanations that were simultaneously technical and philosophical. "Technology is a conversation," she said, "not a statement, but a continuous dialogue of potential." The assembled scientific community struggled to process the demonstration. Conventional understanding suggested that such molecular adaptability was impossible. Yet here it was, happening in real time. challenging every established scientific paradigm. Sensor logs would later show that the ship's transformation involved quantum-level modifications happening thousands of times per second. Each modification was a solution, an adaptation, a response to the immediate environment. "We're witnessing something beyond technology," Dr. Kareen whispered. "This is a new form of intelligence." As the docking completed, the ship settled into its new position, or rather, negotiated its relationship with the station's infrastructure. It wasn't a static object, but a dynamic system of continuous adaptation and communication. The observation deck remained silent, every being present understanding that everything had changed. Humanity had just redefined the concept of technological capability. The intelligence analysis chambers buzzed with frantic energy. Researchers from multiple civilizations worked in unprecedented collaboration, each team bringing their most advanced analytical tools to unravel the mystery of the human ship. Dr. Helena Volkov, the lead human technical liaison, watched their efforts with a subtle smile that suggested they had only scratched the surface of what she knew. Deep within the station's most secure research wing, quantum scanners and multispectral analysis systems worked overtime. What they discovered defied every existing understanding of spacecraft technology. The ship was not just a vessel. It was a seed. A self-replicating, adaptive intelligence system capable of transforming raw materials from any environment into a complete fleet within an incredibly short time span. Each molecular component carried intricate blueprints, adaptive algorithms that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental challenges. "It's a living system," muttered Dr. Kreen, his neural interfaces working at maximum capacity. "Not a machine. Not an artificial intelligence. Something between organic adaptation and technological engineering." The research teams discovered layers of complexity that left them breathless. The ship's computational matrix ran algorithms so advanced that the most sophisticated artificial intelligence systems of other civilizations appeared like simple calculators in comparison. One microscopic component could generate entire technological ecosystems. A single gram of the ship's hull material contained more computational potential than entire planetary research networks. It wasn't just advanced technology. It was a revolutionary approach to existence itself. Quantum entanglement protocols were embedded so deeply that the ship seemed to communicate with potential versions of itself across multiple probability streams. Each molecular structure carried not just current information, but potential adaptations for scenarios that hadn't even occurred. "They're not just planning," observed analyst Kyra, her three-lens optical system capturing microscopic details. "They're anticipating." The methane-breathing Crux researchers discovered something even more extraordinary. The ship's adaptive systems could generate environmental support structures that would allow it to function in virtually any planetary or space environment. Extreme heat, extreme cold, high radiation, zero gravity. Each scenario was not a challenge, but an opportunity for reconfiguration. Diplomatic researchers began to understand the deeper implication. This wasn't just a technological demonstration. It was a statement about humanity's approach to existence. Flexible, adaptive, always seeing potential where others saw limitations. Dr. Helena Volkov's occasional comments provided tantalizing glimpses into the philosophy behind the technology. "Survival is not about strength," she would say. "It's about adaptability. About seeing every challenge as an opportunity for growth." The research teams worked around molecular clock cycles, each discovery more fascinating than the last. The ship's systems could analyze an environment, generate appropriate technological responses, and begin self-modification within microseconds. Some components appeared to have learning capabilities that blurred the line between technological and biological intelligence. They didn't just process information, they understood context, anticipated needs, and generated solutions in real time. The Obsidian Confederacy's top researchers noted something particularly fascinating. The ship's adaptive systems seemed to draw inspiration from biological evolution, but accelerated to technological timescales. Each interaction was a potential point of transformation, each challenge an opportunity for redesign. "They're not creating technology," whispered one researcher. "They're cultivating it." Intelligence reports began to circulate through diplomatic channels. One ship could become thousands, each uniquely adapted to its specific environment. The implications were staggering. Conventional military strategists found themselves completely unprepared. Traditional defensive calculations became obsolete. How do you defend against a technological system that sees your defenses as merely another problem to solve? Dr. Crean summarized the findings in a report that would be discussed for generations. Humanity has not just developed advanced technology. They have created a living technological ecosystem that views existence itself as a continuous adaptive process. The station's most secure research chambers continued their work, each moment revealing new layers of complexity. The human ship was more than a technological marvel. It was a profound philosophical statement about the nature of intelligence, adaptation, and potential. Somewhere, Captain Elena Rodriguez would be smiling, knowing they had only seen the beginning. The interview chambers of the Galactic Convergence Station became a crucible of cultural understanding. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat with an ease that both intrigued and unsettled the assembled diplomatic experts. Her presence was a study in controlled complexity, professional yet approachable, technologically advanced yet fundamentally human. Dr. Marcus Chen, the station's lead cultural anthropologist, prepared his most sophisticated translation matrices. Previous attempts to understand human culture had been frustratingly incomplete, like trying to understand an ocean by examining a single droplet. "Tell us about your approach to innovation," requested Counselor Zreen, his sensory tendrils vibrating with anticipation. Rodriguez smiled, a gesture that itself seemed to carry multiple layers of meaning. She began with a story about jazz music, a concept that initially confused the alien diplomats. "Imagine a form of music," she explained, "where the musicians don't just follow a predetermined score, but create something entirely new in the moment, where mistakes become opportunities, where the unexpected is not a failure, but the most exciting part of the performance." The translation matrices worked overtime. For the methane-breathing Crux delegates, this translated to complex molecular improvisation patterns. The silicon-based Obsidian Confederacy received it as a dynamic problem-solving algorithm. "In our approach," Rodriguez continued, "every limitation is just an unexplored opportunity. We don't see barriers. We see invitation for creative solution." Researchers realized they were witnessing something profound. This wasn't just a description of technological approach. It was a fundamental philosophy of existence. Dr. Helena Volkov, the technical liaison, provided additional context. Human technological development wasn't a linear progression, but a complex, adaptive ecosystem. Where other civilizations saw rigid technological pathways, humans saw fluid possibilities. The diplomatic teams began to understand that humanity's technological marvel wasn't about the end product. It was about the process of creation itself. Junior analyst Kyra found herself fascinated. The human approach challenged every established understanding of technological development. Most galactic civilizations developed technology through careful, predetermined research protocols. Humans seemed to view technology as a living, breathing conversation. "We learn by doing," Rodriguez explained. "By failing. By reimagining." The interview revealed layers of cultural complexity. Human education systems emphasized not just knowledge acquisition, but adaptive thinking. Children were taught to ask why and what if more than they were taught absolute facts. Counselor Zreen's research team discovered something extraordinary. Human historical records showed a civilization that had consistently transformed its greatest challenges into unprecedented opportunities. Economic limitations became innovation drivers. Environmental challenges became technological breakthroughs. "Our technology is a reflection of our cultural DNA," Rodriguez said. "We don't just solve problems. We see them as invitations to reimagine everything." The methane-breathing Crux delegates found particular resonance in this approach. Their own evolutionary history suggested similar adaptive strategies, but humanity had taken this concept to an entirely new level. Dr. Marcus Chen noted something profound in his initial reports. Human culture seemed to view uncertainty not as a threat, but as the most exciting landscape of potential. Where other civilizations sought stability, humans seemed to thrive on dynamic change. The interview continued, each moment revealing new layers of complexity. Rodriguez spoke about human art, about scientific research, about social structures, always returning to the core concept of adaptive potential. We're not trying to conquer, she emphasized. We're trying to understand, to grow, to transform. The diplomatic chambers became a space of genuine cultural exchange. The human delegation wasn't presenting technology. They were offering a perspective, a way of seeing the universe as a continuous, adaptive conversation. Analyst Kyra's report would later describe it as a cultural approach that views existence itself as a creative process. As the interview concluded, the assembled diplomatic experts understood something fundamental had changed. This wasn't just a technological encounter. This was a profound reimagining of what intelligent civilization could mean. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not with a weapon or a declaration, but with an invitation to see the universe differently. The conversation was just beginning. The strategic analysis chambers of the Galactic Convergence Station hummed with an intensity that bordered on existential revelation. What had initially seemed like a simple diplomatic mission was now understood as something far more complex, a masterful demonstration of psychological and technological strategy. Admiral Helena Rodriguez, no relation to the ship's captain, leaned back in her observation chair, her veteran's eyes studying the extensive data streams. The human approach was not just a technological marvel. It was a symphony of strategic thinking that challenged every existing concept of diplomatic engagement. By sending a single ship, humanity had introduced an element of profound uncertainty that was more powerful than any weapon system. Each civilization processed this differently. The militaristic Zorn hierarchy saw it as a potential threat, their massive fleet tracking systems working overtime to analyze every microscopic detail. The diplomatic celestial harmonies viewed it as an unprecedented communication strategy. The research-focused quantum collective saw it as a living experiment in interstellar interaction. But the true genius lay in the multilayered nature of the approach. The ship was not just a vessel. It was a message, a living, adaptive communication system that spoke volumes without uttering a single direct threat. Where traditional diplomatic approaches relied on displays of power or explicit negotiations, humans had introduced something entirely different, a strategy of potential. Dr. Kreen's analysis team discovered layer after layer of strategic complexity. The ship's very existence challenged fundamental assumptions about technological capability, diplomatic engagement, and interstellar communication. They're not showing us what they can do, observed one senior researcher. They're showing us what they might be able to do. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. Military strategists across multiple star systems found themselves recalculating defensive protocols. How do you defend against a potential that you cannot fully comprehend? Diplomatic channels buzzed with unprecedented levels of communication. Emergency sessions were called. Research teams worked around molecular clock cycles. The human approach had transformed a simple first contact into a galaxy-wide intellectual and strategic event. Captain Elena Rodriguez's occasional communications became carefully analyzed pieces of a larger puzzle. Each transmission was not just a message, but a strategic element in a complex psychological engagement. The Zorn hierarchy's military analysts spent countless hours developing potential scenarios. Each analysis revealed more questions than answers. The human ship seemed to exist in a state of continuous potential, able to adapt, transform, and respond in ways that defied traditional strategic thinking. "They've turned uncertainty into a weapon," muttered one Zorn strategic coordinator. But it wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It was an invitation, a challenge to reimagine diplomatic and technological engagement. The Celestial Harmony's diplomatic research team discovered something even more fascinating. The human approach wasn't about intimidation. It was about collaboration. Each strategic element seemed designed to create dialogue, to generate collective understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen's cultural analysis revealed the philosophical underpinnings. This was not a display of power, but a demonstration of potential. Humanity was showing not what they could destroy, but what they could create. Intelligence reports began to circulate through secure diplomatic channels. One ship could become thousands. Each interaction was a potential point of transformation. The implications were staggering. The Quantum Collective's research teams found themselves in a state of continuous fascination. The human ship was not just a technological marvel. It was a living demonstration of a fundamental philosophical approach, that existence itself is a continuous, adaptive process. Strategic brilliance, they realized, was not about controlling outcomes. It was about creating possibilities. As discussions continued, one thing became increasingly clear. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not with a show of force, but with an invitation to reimagine potential. The conversation was just beginning. And no one, absolutely no one, could predict where it might lead. Tension crackled through the diplomatic channels of the Galactic Convergence Station. Not all civilizations viewed humanity's approach with curiosity or admiration. The Zorn hierarchy, renowned for their militant precision and aggressive defensive strategies, saw the human ship as nothing short of a provocation. Fleet Admiral Krell of the Zorn Military Command stood before massive holographic displays, his scaled features twisted in a mixture of concern and barely contained aggression. Tactical projections filled the room, each simulation more complex than the last. One ship, he growled to his senior strategists, should not be able to create this level of uncertainty. Military preparation began across multiple star systems. Defensive networks activated. Long-range sensor arrays focused their most advanced scanning technologies on the single human vessel. Each civilization interpreted the potential threat differently, but the underlying response was universal: preparation. The Quantum Collective's research teams worked in parallel, their analysis providing a counterpoint to the military preparations. Where the Zorn saw a potential threat, the researchers saw an unprecedented opportunity for understanding. Dr. Helena Volkov, the human technical liaison, watched these preparations with a calm that only intensified the uncertainty. Her occasional communications were masterpieces of diplomatic nuance, each message containing layers of scientific proposal, cultural insight, and subtle challenge. "We're here to collaborate," she would say, "not to compete." But collaboration was the furthest thing from the Zorn hierarchy's collective mind. Their military simulations ran thousands of potential conflict scenarios. Each scenario revealed the human ship's extraordinary adaptive capabilities. Traditional defensive strategies became obsolete within moments of simulation. The ship could reconfigure its molecular structure faster than weapon systems could lock onto it. Its computational matrices seemed to anticipate defensive moves before they were even initiated. It wasn't just advanced technology. It was a living, thinking system that viewed each potential conflict as a complex problem to be solved. Diplomatic channels became increasingly tense. The celestial harmonies worked desperately to prevent escalation, their multiple communication networks spinning complex negotiation matrices. Captain Elena Rodriguez remained a model of controlled communication. Her transmissions continue to offer scientific collaboration, research proposals, and invitations for mutual understanding. Each message was simultaneously a diplomatic overture and a subtle demonstration of technological capability. The methane-breathing Crux delegates found themselves in a unique position. Their own evolutionary history suggested that adaptation was the ultimate survival strategy. They watched the unfolding tension with a mixture of fascination and professional appreciation. "They're not preparing for war," observed their senior diplomatic advisor. "They're creating a conversation." But conversations are difficult when one party is preparing for potential conflict. The Zorn hierarchy began mobilizing their most advanced fleet elements. Massive warships, each capable of planetary destruction, began movement patterns that suggested aggressive positioning. Long-range weapon systems calibrated to unprecedented levels of sensitivity. Dr. Crean's research team continued their analysis, providing critical insights that attempted to reduce tensions. Their reports emphasized the human ship's consistent messages of collaboration. Each transmission contained scientific proposals, research invitations, and cultural exchange opportunities. They're offering knowledge, Dr. Crean explained in an emergency diplomatic session, not seeking conflict. But military minds are not easily convinced by peaceful intentions. The human ship remained a study in controlled potential. Its very existence challenged every conventional understanding of military engagement. Where traditional vessels showed defensive or offensive capabilities, this ship demonstrated something far more complex, an ability to transform each potential conflict into an opportunity for understanding. As fleet movements continued and diplomatic tensions escalated, one thing became increasingly clear. Humanity had introduced something entirely new to galactic interactions. This was not just a potential conflict. This was a fundamental reimagining of what conflict could mean. The conversation was far from over. The moment of resolution arrived not with a thunderous declaration, but with a subtle shift in understanding that would be recorded in galactic archives as a turning point in interstellar diplomacy. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood before the assembled diplomatic representatives, her presence both unassuming and profoundly impactful. The human ship behind her seemed to breathe with a living intelligence, its molecular structure shifting almost imperceptibly with each moment. "We didn't come to conquer or compete," she began, her words carefully translated across multiple linguistic matrices. "We came to collaborate, on our terms." Those terms were nothing short of revolutionary. The proposal laid out by the human delegation was a complex, adaptive framework for interstellar cooperation that defied every existing diplomatic protocol. It wasn't a treaty in the traditional sense. It was a living document, a computational matrix that could evolve, adapt, and respond to changing galactic conditions. Dr. Crean from the Quantum Collective found himself at the center of the most significant diplomatic breakthrough in galactic history. The human proposal wasn't just a set of agreements. It was a dynamic system of potential collaboration that could transform as civilizations grew and changed. The Zorn hierarchy, still prepared for potential conflict, found themselves intellectually disarmed. Their most advanced strategic analysts discovered that the human proposal effectively neutralized traditional concepts of military advantage. It wasn't about limiting capabilities, but about creating unprecedented opportunities for mutual growth. Adaptive diplomacy, Dr. Marcus Chen would later write in his groundbreaking analysis, is not about controlling outcomes. It's about creating ecosystems of potential. The methane-breathing Crux delegates discovered something profound in the human approach. Their own evolutionary history had always emphasized adaptation, but humanity had elevated this concept to an entirely new level. Each diplomatic clause was not a rigid limitation, but a living pathway for potential collaboration. The ship itself became a symbol of this new approach. Its molecular structure continued to shift and adapt, a physical manifestation of the diplomatic framework being proposed. Where other civilizations saw boundaries, humans saw opportunities for transformation. Counselor Zreen's research team worked furiously to understand the deeper implications. The proposal contained embedded learning algorithms that could analyze diplomatic interactions in real time, suggesting adaptive solutions to emerging challenges. It's not just diplomacy, one researcher noted. It's a continuous dialogue of potential. The celestial harmonies found themselves particularly moved. For civilizations that had spent millennia developing complex diplomatic protocols, the human approach was both shocking and deeply compelling. It suggested a fundamental reimagining of interstellar cooperation. Captain Rodriguez continued her presentation, each moment revealing layers of strategic brilliance. The proposal wasn't just about immediate collaboration. It was a framework for continuous, adaptive engagement that could evolve as civilizations grew and changed. scientific exchange programs, adaptive resource sharing protocols, dynamic conflict resolution matrices. Each element of the proposal challenged existing understanding of interstellar interaction. The Obsidian Confederacy's top diplomatic strategists discovered something extraordinary. The human proposal contained built-in mechanisms for addressing potential conflicts before they could escalate. It wasn't about preventing disagreement, but about transforming disagreement into opportunity for mutual understanding. As the presentation concluded, something profound had occurred. The single ship that had arrived had done more than introduce a civilization. It had introduced a new way of thinking about existence itself. Dr. Helena Volkov's final summary captured the essence of the moment. We're not here to be part of your galaxy. We're here to help create something new. The diplomatic chambers fell silent. The holographic displays continued to shift and change, reflecting the dynamic nature of the proposal. The human ship remained a living testament to the philosophy being presented, a system of continuous potential, of adaptive possibility. The conversation was no longer about first contact. It was about a fundamental reimagining of what civilization could mean. Somewhere, in the vast complexity of the universe, something extraordinary had begun.